Hi everyone, and welcome to my Campus GPS Facebook Live. This is the place where we talk about how parents can help their high school student prepare for university. I'm Janet McDonald, and I'm a former admissions officer, and now with my Campus GPS, I help high school students and parents with the process of preparing for university. So tonight we're talking about how to not let overwhelm derail your scholarship success. So tonight is part 4 in my scholarship mindset series, and I started this series because really, we can find all of the scholarships we want and hand them over to our student on a silver platter, but unless they are in the right kind of mindset to be involved in the process, it is not going to go well. They need to believe certain things in order to participate to the best of their ability in this process, or even to participate at all. Some, if they're not in the right mindset, maybe they don't even want to participate in this process at all. So they need to believe a few key things, and one of the things that they need to believe is that they're eligible for scholarships. The second thing is that they need to believe that there is a chance that they could actually win a scholarship, because if they don't feel like there's any chance at all to win, again, they're not going to want to participate in the process. So you might have seen some news articles that are popular right now. They're on my Facebook feed and they're on my Twitter feed. One of them has a title something like "Marks Don't Matter," and another one, the title is something like "Millions of dollars in scholarship money goes unused every year in Canada," or something like that. So these things really back up my theory that part of the reason why students aren't applying for scholarships is because they feel like they don't qualify for scholarships and that there's no chance to actually win them. So they're basing that information on maybe their feelings that they're not, they don't have the confidence in themselves, and they're basing those a lot of their time on myths or misinformation that's out there about scholarships. They are not basing that decision to not participate in scholarships. They're not basing that decision on facts, because the facts tell us that 2/3 of scholarships don't actually require, a long application process. You don't have to be a top student. They don't require high marks. They don't require students to demonstrate financial need. These are all part of these myths that prevents qualified students from applying for and winning scholarships. So those are the facts, and we need to ensure that our students are making decisions based on facts, not based on myths and misinformation. Okay, so that was actually part 2 in the scholarship mindset thing. Part 3, the third thing that they need to believe is that they need to believe that there's some benefit in it for them, and that's that whole "what's in it for me." So they need to have some purpose, to be going through this process. So that was part 3, and so tonight is part 4 in the scholarship mindset series, and so we're talking about overwhelm. So your student needs to believe that that they can complete the process successfully. That is not impossible to complete these applications, that it is doable. And part of that is that they need to know that they're not going to be alone in this process, that there is a plan with step-by-step actions that they can take so they don't get overwhelmed and give up. Okay, because at some point, sooner or later in the process, it is going to start to feel like there isn't enough time, and they're going to start to wonder if they can do it all. If that's allowed to continue, then these feelings of overwhelm can start. And we all know what happens, when we get overwhelmed. Most of the time what we do is we kind of just throw up our hands and say, "I can't do it, I give up." Okay, so that is definitely not what we want to happen. So here's just an example to kind of illustrate how that overwhelm can happen. So I want you to think about, if your student is in grade 10 or 11, I want you to think about all of the stuff that they have on their plate right now, like currently. So they have, all of their schoolwork, and then they have their school activities, and then their other kinds of extracurricular activities. So maybe outside of school they volunteer, and maybe they work part-time, and so they have their sports and all of that sort of stuff. So they have all of their regular schoolwork, and then they have all of these regular kind of extracurricular activities. So that's kind of, the norm for 10 and 11. Now when we talk about grade 12, what we need to do is add on a new layer of responsibilities and requirements on their time. So this new layer that we're going to add on top of all the stuff that they're normally doing, we're going to add on researching universities, researching university programs, campus tours, open houses, and then actually applying to universities. And that can be very time consuming, especially if they're applying in different provinces, getting transcripts, organizing all of that kind of stuff. So that's another layer that we're going to add on top of the normal stuff. Now we're going to add another layer on top of that in grade 12, and that is all of the fun grad activities that they have. So, the fundraisers, the banquets, the dances, and all that really great fun stuff that of course they're going to want to participate in and should participate in. So that's another layer, and that's going to be competing for their time as well. So now we're going to add another layer on top of that, and that other layer is time to find scholarships and apply for scholarships. So are you starting to see how this can be very overwhelming in grade 12? So this is part of the reason why I try to get students and parents to take off the plate of anything that they can take off of grade 12 and put into grade 11 or even grade 10. So it's part of some of the planning, anything that you can do to even partially complete something before grade 12, that's going to free up some time in grade 12. So this is part of the reason why I do that. So now, like I say, you can kind of see how this overwhelm can all of this stuff is going to add up and start to feel a little overwhelming for your student and for you actually too. So but it doesn't have to be this way, okay? So it doesn't have to get to that point. And the whole thing, of course, is to avoid the overwhelm so you don't give up. So now let's back up and just say that you and your student have agreed that you're going to do your best to apply, find and apply for scholarships. So great. So it does take time to do that, especially if it's done well. It'll take time to do that. But I'm definitely not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying it, of course, to encourage you and to help to kind of get you to understand how to prevent what most people do, or many people do, which is to give up because they get overwhelmed. So many people will get overwhelmed and give up during this process because they waste a lot of time kind of spinning their wheels where they're not getting any kind of return on the investment of this time that they're putting in for this. And the reason why is because they don't take a strategic approach to it. It's more reactive, and it's kind of like scrambling at the last minute to kind of get this done. But if you develop more of a strategy, a plan with kind of step-by-step actions, along the way, you will be 100% more successful with this whole thing. So this strategy, plan, and process, it should include you and your son or daughter working as a team. Okay, so when you work as a team and you both know the plan, and you know what you need to do, and you know what your respective areas of responsibility are and everything, you can, divide and conquer and get twice as much done, really. So this should be a partnership between you and your student, and where you both understand the plan and you understand what your role is in executing that plan. So for example, how will you look for scholarships? Where will you look? Who will look in what areas? How often will you look for this? Like, will it be on a schedule? I suggest it is on a schedule, but will it be on a schedule? What information is required on the scholarship applications? How many references do you need? Who should you ask to be a reference? When will you ask? How will you ask? When do you do the activities list? What should you put on the activities list? What should you put on your essay? There are a lot of different things, and when you start to kind of think about these things, like I say, you can kind of get, oh my gosh, it's too much, and you get overwhelmed and you kind of shut down. So if you have more of a plan and a kind of step-by-step strategy to do this, then it will make it much more manageable, and you will be much more successful with it as well. Now, the good news, of course, is that when your student completes some of this stuff for the scholarships, you can, once they have it done once, it'll be easier to do in subsequent applications, and they'll have some information developed that they can use over and over again in other scholarship applications. So it just have to be modified a bit or tweaked a bit or whatever, but a lot of the information you'll be able to reuse in other applications, which means that you can apply for more in less time, and that of course increases your chances of winning if you're applying for more scholarships. So because doing it right and doing it well can take some time and effort, your child does need to know that you are going to help them with this, and that it's going to be, you're going to keep them on track in a helpful way, in a partnership. Because here's the thing, most students, they don't have the time to plan all of this, and they don't have the time management skills and the organizational skills developed yet to really plan out how this is all going to work together with all of this stuff that needs to be done in grade 12. So they'll need you to kind of keep the bus on the road. They should be driving the bus, but you can be the navigator to help them keep on the right path. Because the moment it starts to feel like too much, and then when the overwhelm sets in, that's when the bus stops. And that's what we want to avoid, is that stopping and giving up. And I believe that this overwhelm and the giving up is part of the reason why millions of dollars in scholarship money goes unused from year to year, because people are just they're spinning their wheels, they're not getting results, and they're giving up at some point during the process. And I've heard this a lot from different people who said, it just wasn't working, we just gave up. But that doesn't have to be what happens to you. Okay, so if you have your plan and you develop your team and you get your strategy and everything, it will be a much different situation for you. So on my website, I have 3 blogs that you can read to get some ideas about how to help your student with the process and to kind of start to think about how to plan out your strategy for this for grade 12. So the first one is called The 3 Very First Things You Need to Do to Start the Scholarship Season, and they might not be what you think. The second one is called How Parents Can Help Their Student Keep the Scholarship Bus on the Road. Okay, and the third one is How to Beat the Grade 12 Overwhelm. That's what I call this thing, the Grade 12 Overwhelm. So you can go to my website my blog is on there, so you can access this information and start to think about your plan. And that is at mycampusgps.ca/blog, BLOG. So that's it for tonight. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next week. Thanks.